and welcome back to Mixed Media Live. We're here for another awesome Tuesday of your favorite things, which is anything art-related, so as far as we can help it. And what we do is we talk about pretty much anything and everything that our heart desires. Wow, that was loud. And unnecessary. Why did you do that? Okay, I'll fix that in a moment. But if you're new to the show, this is a weekly live stream podcast where we talk about art and things. And the great thing about being a live streamed podcast is that you get to be part of the podcast. If you comment or anything like that, we'll be sure to read your comments, involve you in the discussion, and we get to have a whole communal shebang. And it's always a lot of fun. But before we continue talking, which is what we do for a few hours, is blab, we should introduce ourselves. So my name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
Hi, my name is Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer.
And my name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and video game developer.
Nice. And I see you didn't get the GoPro to work.
Well, I don't know what was happening there at the end, especially. I like literally unplugged the GoPro and then turned off the software, and it was still showing like the GoPro stuff on the screen. I was kind of confused. I had to turn off the camera and turn off the Skype video and turn it back on. Gotcha. But yeah, no, I don't know what's happening. So.
Well, Nathan will have upgraded video at some point in the future. And shout out to our awesome supporters. We got 99 Crime, Post, K Kairos, and Alex Egbert supporting us at mixedmedia.locals.com. They make this show absolutely possible, and it's very, very helpful, as we'll hopefully see sometime soon as we revamp things. And I've been saying that for a while, but I do mean it. It's happening. I've got an intern on the case. So this will be a thing. So don't you worry. The dollars are safe and sound with Mixed Media. So if you go to mixedmedia.locals.com, you can also support us for $5 a month. Super cheap, nothing to break the bank, but really does help quite a lot. But other than that, how is your guys' weeks?
It's all right. Can't think of anything particularly interesting. What did I do this weekend? Wow. Or this week in general? Definitely I was doing radio stuff. So I don't know if I mentioned that like ever on the podcast, but I'm doing a lot of stuff like radio and whatever. And so I don't think I have it with me. No, but I have this like little radio dongle thing I can plug into my computer, and I can receive radio signals. So yeah, I have this book on radio stuff next to me, but it's under a bunch of other books, so I'm not going to pick it up. But yeah.
Cool. How about you, Ben?
Nothing too interesting. I've got some stuff that I'm looking forward to, but nothing terribly interesting this past week. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, for me, the most notable things was the weekend I went on retreat, which was awesome. I haven't been on a retreat since college, actually. I reflected on that while I was there. I was like, dang, it's been a while. But it was really great, especially because it was not too far from here. It was 2 hours away. If you're familiar with the Godsplaining podcast at all, it was their annual retreat, run by Dominicans. And I also haven't seen Dominicans. Well, I saw Dominicans in New York, but I didn't really interact with them too much. But it was great to actually like interact with the Dominicans since college. Brought back a lot of memories. But so that was great. And
it's kind of funny if you don't know what that means, like what a Dominican is. You're talking about people of the country.
No, yeah, sorry. There's an order of the Catholic Church called the Order of Preachers. But their founder is Saint Dominic, so they go by the Dominicans as well. So that's the explanation there. So that was great. And then I also got a chance to finally pop in Mad Max Fury Road. So the first Mad Max of the new trilogy. And it was everything I wanted it to be. And everything I thought it would be too. Like, it didn't exceed expectations, it didn't go below expectations, but wow, that movie's a visual feast. And so I'll probably be talking about that film sometime in the future. If you're curious for the spoiler of my rating, I gave it a 4 out of 5, which is a really good score. It's about where I thought it would be. But personal enjoyment factor is definitely up there. Very lovely to watch.
Question, Irving, actually, just because I saw an event that's somewhat local. They're showing the 1966 film A Man for All Seasons about St. Thomas More. Are you familiar with that film?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard a lot about it. I heard that it's a great film, so it's definitely on my list. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure, if I'll be able to go to it or not, but if I am, I'll let you know what I think.
Sweet. Yes. Let's see. We got our first chat in here. Why is it not showing up on the screen? Very odd. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Kai says that movie rules. Okay, good. A Man for All Seasons is just awesome. Okay, cool. So let's see here. So what about news? Any news in your guys' arenas?
There's some talk of a potential Xbox mobile console, like a Steam Deck or Nintendo Switch type thing. I don't think there's much known about any of the details, but Phil Spencer said, quote, "The future for us in hardware is pretty awesome." So, I don't know. We'll see what that looks like. Although, I don't know what he was referring, because he could also be referring to the other hardware stuff with like I think I talked about this or 2 episodes ago about the different manufacturers for the next Xbox generation. But we'll see. It's kind of interesting how we've come full circle from like PlayStation Portable, and then that got that was removed from the lineup, and then now we're back at like Xbox and maybe Sony at some point releasing a mobile console. That'll be interesting. But yeah, I am also curious to see if they'll use like the Xbox operating system, or if they'll use like Linux or Windows or something like that. I would imagine it'd be something like Xbox, so you can play your Xbox games on the console as well. But we'll see.
Cool.
PlayStation also does. Sorry, PlayStation does have a like mobile console kind of. I forget what it's called, but it's like pretty sure it's like, I remember it being like very expensive for what it is. It's like a screen, and it has no processing power of its own. Basically, you can pretty sure you just stream PlayStation games to it. But yeah, that's it.
Sweet. Anything in music?
I don't know if it's exactly like this past week news, but I saw. I thought it was interesting. I guess the researcher who is doing behind the effort to compile a complete like the complete works of George Gershwin and Ira Gershwin, he discovered in lost in these archives in New Hampshire, I think, the score to one of George Gershwin's first pieces is a musical from 1920 called La La Lucille, which again, like I said, has been lost for basically since it was first performed, which is kind of interesting. And so be interesting, when I guess there, to see young Gershwin, because this is 1920s, so he's only like 20 years old, and 4 years before Rhapsody in Blue really put him on the map. Kind of interesting, once all this material is released, to see what young George Gershwin was doing.
Cool. Excuse me. Awesome. On my end, I had something written down. Oh, actually, I had the headlines pulled up, and I wanted to. I'll get to some Baldwin news that's very interesting at the end of this, but did anyone know that there was an Inside Out 2 coming out?
So I remember seeing like I don't know if I saw like a trailer or something, but I commented to someone, "Oh, I thought this came out already." So I just didn't hear. I didn't know like I didn't know it. You know, I guess I'd never heard about it coming out recently, so I assumed it already happened.
Right. There's been so many silent releases lately. It's extremely concerning. Like Inside Out 2 should be like plastered on every wall of every place of the planet because it's a children's film that will attract literally everybody. But weirdly, didn't know it was coming out until well, just a moment ago. So there you go. Inside Out 2. And also, did anyone ask for a sausage party Foodtopia? Did anyone ask for that to exist? Do you guys remember that? Now the trailers for Sausage Party way back in the day. No? Okay.
What is that? I have no idea what you were talking about.
It is the dumbest, like... I mean, I haven't seen it, so maybe I shouldn't be judging. But it looks very dumb. It is food making raunchy jokes for probably the entirety of the runtime of the film. So you've got, characters like a hot dog and a character like a bun, right? So like you get where this is going.
What is this like a bad version of like when you go like a baseball game, they have like the racing hot dogs, like something like that.
No, I think it's worse.
I mean, like, is it better animated than that?
I don't think it's particularly well animated either.
What? I've never heard of this.
Well, look up Sausage Party.
But I kind of don't want to, but thank you anyway.
I'm sure no one would have remembered that thing even existed until I just said Sausage Party, party right now. And TV trailers are coming to mind. But there is a sequel called, or the trailer is called Food is Alive, and the sequel's called Foodtopia. Kai says Seth Rogen is involved, and it's not the sophisticated side. Right, exactly. Exactly. Not even on the order of, like, super bad sophistication, if I gather correctly. Yeah, exactly. So there's that. Okay, now Baldwin news. Because apparently nothing else is happening. This is kind of crazy. This story just keeps going on forever. And there's just, like... I at this point, I'm, like, almost committed to live streaming. I have work. It's so annoying. I have to do work. But I might react to, like, clips from the trial when that happens. Apparently a year from now. It's been pushed back so much. So whenever that happens, I might react to some of the best clips or something like that from the time. But we'll see. But important news from the Baldwin thing. Apparently, the FBI, when they tested the, or this is allegations from the Baldwin side, and I've said many times on the show that when someone becomes a defendant, I also become the advocate for their rights, not their person, but their rights. So I always look at things from the defense's perspective, and then think about how things can go from there. Now, at this juncture, I cannot imagine the guy not being guilty, but that's because the facts are so bad. But that being said, apparently the FBI, according to the Baldwin's attorneys, destroyed the gun when they were testing it for being able to misfire. So if you remember, a while back, I probably had a news segment or in some segment or another, I said that the FBI tested the gun and found that there was no way it could fire on its own, because this is something that Baldwin told the police immediately on tape in the interrogation room like an absolute moron. He said that the gun fired all on its lonesome. It just kind of happened, right? And so the FBI tested the gun and said that was literally impossible. Which, if you know things about gun mechanics too, I mean, there's certain things that are just not... I mean, guns firing on their own, you can imagine, is not very desirable in gun design. And so they... guns are probably designed not to do that. So this particular gun did not have a defect that caused it to do that. According to the FBI, that is. But apparently, in their testing, they were testing whether the hammer, and I explained this in the first segment. I explained in detail how firing mechanisms work in guns. So if you want to check that out, you can search that on the channel. But apparently, the hammer, which drops a pin on the bullet and then ignites the words. Wow, I'm forgetting the name. Blanking, which is an odd pun. When the firing pin drops on the bullet, then it ignites and then, fires off. Primer, there's the word. When the firing pin hits the primer, then it fires off. Now, apparently they were testing whether the hammer could just drop on its own, right? Now, Alec Baldwin alleged that the hammer wasn't even back in some random discourse that he had, which is also idiotic for him to say anything at all. But he said that he never cocked the hammer back, but they tested it anyway, for thoroughness, right? So they pulled the hammer back, and then they took a rubber mallet and they smacked it against the hammer multiple times to see if it could ever, somehow drop itself onto a primer. And they found that couldn't happen. In fact, they kept doing it until apparently the hammer, where the hammer engages with the trigger mechanism, they broke the connection between the two. That's how hard they were smacking it at some point. So they broke the gun. Now, this is a problem, right? Because, Nathan, can you guess the problem is here?
Well, you just destroyed your, main piece of evidence.
Right. Now, I didn't happen to know this happened. I don't know if it was disclosed in the FBI documents or not. But the Baldwin lawyers are saying that that his charges should just be dismissed. And, of course, they've got to say that. Anytime you have a chance to say, I want to dismiss this entire case, you say it, obviously. But they're also saying that we want this piece of evidence completely excluded, including the FBI report. Now, the state hasn't responded to my knowledge, but I can imagine this going many different ways. So let's think about whether it's reasonable for Baldwin to ask for this relief. Well, again, putting my defense hat on, really thinking about his rights involved here and not violating them, right? The FBI report is not automatically credible because it's an FBI report. It's not. It has the stamp of FBI on it does not make it auto-credible, right? In fact, there's many, many, many cases of FBI tampering with evidence in history. Recent history, and old history, since they began existing, right? So there's always a possibility that the FBI could tamper or just do the test improperly, or there could be a lack of chain of custody. They could have tested the wrong gun. There's a whole bunch of issues here that you cannot now analyze very well because the gun does not function. And why can't you analyze them? What is the defense going to say if they had to argue this out? They're going to say that they cannot do their own independent testing with their own expert on the gun. Because normally you would be able to do that. So the state sent it to the FBI lab, and the state said, this is the result, it favors us. And then you could go and you could find your own expert, and if you really, 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 really need a good result, you could find an expert who only deals with defense attorneys, wink, wink, and and you can get a testimony that maybe attacks the FBI report, right? But now you can't do that because now your independent expert cannot go and test the gun anymore, which is not fair. And I actually think that isn't fair, right? Now, what is the correct remedy from the judge's perspective? Well, I have no idea. It depends on a whole bunch of things, norms, whatever. I'm not a judge. But just thinking about how this could go, they could disallow the FBI evidence entirely, which we'll get back to that. They could dismiss the case. Never going to happen. They're not dismissing this case. And I don't know if that's necessarily fair, and we'll get to that also at the end. It's necessarily fair to dismiss the case. Or the judge could say, well, we can have the FBI expert testify as to the evidence that he gathered with regards to the gun, And then when you cross-examine him, just grill him on the fact that he broke the gun and now you can't do any testing, and in the mind of the jury will allow them to decide whether or not they want to factor in this evidence that is one-sided. In fact, maybe the judge could even issue a special instruction for this evidence and tell the jury something like, you are not to believe this evidence simply because the FBI presented it. You are to believe it as to its merits based off of the testimony before you. And because the gun broke, you're not allowed to take the fact that the defense could not present their own witness as a mark against them. Now, humans being humans, is that good enough? Very questionable. Very questionable. Okay. So circling back to like whether any of these things are fair, like if the trial should be going on, you have to ask yourself one question. Does Alec Baldwin's words alone convict him? Are his words enough to convict him? And honestly, again, putting my best defense hat on, probably. Because he admits to all the aspects of the crime. He says, I didn't check for a bullet. I was told that the gun was cold. Okay, well, it doesn't matter what you were told, right? We talked about this in prior episodes. And he was told that he said that he thought it was the real gun. He didn't think it was like some toy gun. So he knew that he should be following the rules of safe firearms handling. Then he pointed at a live human being. So even if there wasn't a bullet in there, he shouldn't have pointed at a live human being. And he admitted to pointing it at a live human being. Case closed, right? Like, even if the gun goes off on its own, it's still recklessness. So that's my opinion on that. That's where probably the judge is going to go, I can't dismiss this because it doesn't matter whether or not we admit this evidence into the trial or not. What matters is whether the jury could come to a conviction anyway with the facts alleged. And when I think of the facts alleged, they could if they believed XYZ things, right? So that's where that stands. But a fascinating case that keeps evolving like crazy. We'll see. I feel like the trial is going to be crazily entertaining. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed is testifying on behalf of the state. That's going to be crazy. So this is going to be a nuts time.
Did she get any benefit for doing that?
Vengeance. She's already convicted, so
Right.
almost certainly vengeance.
But does that reduce her sentence or something?
Nope. It's
No?
just vengeance.
Well,
She hates him.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like she didn't do anything wrong either. So
Oh, I agree. Well, you know how unreasonable human beings can be.
it's not like I mean, I don't know. Okay. Well, I guess.
Think about it this way, right? The gun wasn't working during her trial either, right? Because this FBI report came out a long, long time ago before her trial. And yet she still got convicted. Probably by her own words, also. So I mean, it's fair, right? Fair is fair. I don't know. But, yeah, the whole thing is crazy. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, just in something completely unrelated, we have 31 minutes now until the death of Star Wars. Apparently, yeah.
Is this
If
when
you,
the Acolyte thing comes out? Is that?
Yeah. So episode 3 is coming out. They have a 2-episode premiere last Tuesday at 9, and apparently, I guess the talk is that all the people who got to see it in advance have been saying all week that episode 3 destroys Star Wars. So, whether that's just a clickbait or not.
Has it not been
we'll
destroyed
see.
10 times over?
Yeah, but apparently this actually fundamentally destroys Star Wars, something like that. So I don't know. I don't really follow the rumors, so I'll be eager to see what they could do that would be so bad at this point. So yeah,
I heard the show is absolutely awful. That's the word on the street.
it's just in the first 2 episodes, what I think this okay, if we just look at the first few episodes, they're like okay-ish, but like if they weren't Star Wars, like I would not watch them. Like there's nothing intriguing about them at all. And I think Leslie Headland, the director, is just trying to do like 50 things, like, trying to make it be 50 things at the same time. He wants it to be Rashomon in a surface level way. She wants it to be the Matrix. She wants it to be about colonialism and that sort of stuff, and she wants it to be about. I think my sense is that she also wants it to have like an element of Psycho in there. She's trying to do so many things like at the same time that, like, if maybe if you just did any one of these things well, it might be okay. But like, if you're trying to be 50 things at the same time, you're going to be 0 things well, right?
Yeah.
So
I think I'm going to ChatGPT a script of that description: Psycho, Rashomon, Matrix, whatever the heck else. Star Wars, and see what ChatGPT gives me.
Yeah, well, I'll be watching it just because I kind of feel obligated to, but so once this is over, that's probably what I'll do. But it's one of those things, like, it's so bad. I mean, like, who cares? Like, I don't. If it really is like that bad, I mean, I can just ignore it, right? Like, it doesn't change the original movies, right? So
it does for the future of for the young folks, though, which is kind of a weird thought if you think about it.
Well, you're assuming that any like child is going to grow up watching Star Wars in the next generation.
They probably will.
The newer Star Wars.
Oh, well,
is anyone going to do that? Like,
I think so. Are you
going to, like, if I have a child, am I going to say, let's watch The Rise of Skywalker? Like, no.
I mean, I can't imagine having the thought myself, but like, I see the way like people kind of just hand their iPads to their children and say, watch some Disney Plus. They're probably just going to watch it eventually, right? I don't know.
You're going to watch The Rise of Skywalker? I mean, I don't even know, like, Disney's kind of ignored that those films exist almost so far. So, I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see what the depressing future has to hold.
And also, that assumes then, like, so imagine my hypothetical child runs across The Rise of Skywalker. Like, are they going to be enchanted by that film?
No, I mean,
no.
Well, I mean,
hopefully not.
Well, okay, just to devil's advocate.
Like, wow, this is like, I want to just keep digging into everything future Star Wars because I'm so inspired by Rey. I am now Skywalker, Palpatine. Like,
well, imagine, Ben, that you have no bar to compare it to, and now you're amazed because this is the best thing you've seen. Actually, that's the really disturbing thought.
Yeah, but is that going to be the first, like, maybe, like, you probably are going to, so Disney, if you, I just checked this earlier this morning, so if you go to Disney Plus and you click on Star Wars, it does not show you the sequel films first. Well, first, of course, right now it shows you The Acolyte, right? But then the first thing it shows you is it shows you the movies, but it starts with, it shows you in 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. And then 7, 8, 9. So
yeah, but the old ones have, like, the effects are less, like, perfect or something. There's more film grain.
Story.
Like, I'm just saying. I'm just putting myself in the mind of an unpalated youth, and how on earth are they supposed to know what's good when they're just handed a bunch of trash?
But they're probably not going to go scroll to number 9 first. They're probably, if you're going to click on something, they'll probably click on the first thing, which is episode 4. And then you want to know what happens, so you watch episode 5. That's the next thing in the list anyway. Then episode 6, and 1, 2, and 3. And at that point, you've already seen 6 good films. And then you're going to think that 7, 8, and 9 are good?
I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news, but I really think it could go down exactly like that.
You're like, if you didn't like the first 6, if you didn't like the first 6, are you gonna sit through all 6 and then say, "Yeah, I'll try number 7"?
Yeah, you might. I mean, you might even have an older sibling who goes like, "Man, you should just skip to the 7th one." Like, no one wants to watch the old ones.
I might be.
Wait, how
How
is your older sibling getting this idea?
I don't know. I hope you're right. I really do. Maybe I'm just being too cynical.
I feel like people wouldn't get through the first 6, if they didn't like, if they were, let alone get to the 7th.
Yeah, but imagine starting with like one of the modern shows. Let's say what's the one that everyone loves? Mandalorian, right? Like, just
watch season 3. Season 3 is unwatchable. It's
well, I mean, you're a kid, you watch season 1 and 2, and you're like, you look at the trailer for the old one, and you go like, wow, that does not look like, just impressionistically anything alike.
Doesn't it look better though? Like all the real costumes and real effects.
Yeah, but think about someone who like looks at a black and white film. It's the same kind of reaction they have, which is like, why should I watch a black and white? And I sympathize with that because they're not used to watching black and white films. It may look to them like, something ancient and dinosaur-like, and that they don't want to watch it. I could imagine that.
I mean, the prequels don't look that outdated. They don't look like they're from a different, like the age of dinosaurs.
Those clones, man. Or whatever they're called, the you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Kaminoans.
Aren't there... So
the clones are not bad. It's the Kaminoans who aren't so
I don't know if I'm remembering incorrectly. So there are... I've never actually seen the prequels in full, but... So there are a lot of clone troopers and there are a lot of droids, if I recall correctly. And if I feel like I remember both those not being the most pleasant use of CGI, because there's a lot of them. I get that, but
I mean, the number one Phantom Menace is not CGI. They're all real. Though there are no clone troopers in that, but yeah.
Are there droids in the Phantom Menace?
Yes.
As well?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta look this up. maybe I'm misremembering.
I'm pretty sure it's the CGI is really in starting in episode 2, not 1.
Yeah. Well, maybe we gotta get a poll going. Actually, can I do a poll on YouTube? Am I allowed to do that as a tiny channel? I don't think so. Oh, I can. Oh my gosh. New powers unlocked. Okay, I will be making a poll about this question as to whether the future of the Star Wars viewers is absolutely crushed and doomed, or if there's a hope. But in the meantime, we should get to our main activity for the day. Which Nathan, what is it?
Today we'll be talking about my pet peeves in game developing, both as a game dev and as a game dev who plays video games, which may inform certain opinions. Although, looking at the list again, it kind of is more like... I feel like pet peeves are typically things that are, like, very specific to, like, you know? This is more like... Or maybe even somewhat irrationally upset at them, These are more, like, understandable things, I think. That just make me angry. So...
Cool. All right. Well, here we go.
Mixed Media Gaming.
Welcome to Mixed Media Gaming, the segment of the Mixed Media Podcast where we talk about gaming, believe it or not. This time I'll be talking about my pet peeves / things that make me angry as a game dev and a person who plays games who is informed by game dev experience. So, yeah. Right. Before we get started, let's reintroduce ourselves. So my name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and video game developer.
Okay, there I am.
No.
My name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
Hi, my name is Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer.
All right. Yeah, so this is, again, the Mixed Media Podcast. Thank you for watching if you're just tuning in. I think my desktop just lost Wi-Fi. Cool. All right, we're good here. We're good here on my laptop. So yeah, I have this list of sort of like pet peeves and whatnot. I don't know. Maybe the judge of whether it's a pet peeve or not, or just something to be upset about generally. But some of these I have talked about on the podcast prior, but I tried to choose a lot of them that I haven't really mentioned, I haven't really talked about. So there are a lot of like new things here, things that I just haven't had the opportunity to talk about, kind of smaller things, things that may be overlooked. So one thing I have talked about, and somewhat recently, was level design. And I think I was talking about how the concept of gray boxing I found very unsavory, which is like just creating a general sort of, specifically in 3D, creating a sort of general layout of a level without, putting in any sort of attention to the visual art part of it and stuff like that. So, or maybe, at least not, you're not actually putting in textures and things like that. You can have a concept of what the level will generally look like or whatever, but you're not actually like making the 3D models and the textures and whatnot. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I talked about this before, so I'm not going to like talk about it for a very long time, but I just think it's generally boring and annoying, and I think the one of the core issues is the tool switching that's required. And that is like the fact that you have to go from, say, Blender to Godot or whatever, and back and forth and back and forth. It sucks. But a more real pet peeve that I think makes a lot more sense is just the amount of tools that you might have to use in a given game. The fact that you're switching between Godot to Blender to what's that thing called? To I'm forgetting. It's the thing I use for 2D art. It's like a pixel art editor thing. I'm forgetting. But to that, to Cakewalk for audio stuff, it is annoying. Part of me wishes there was just one giant suite of like video game tools, like one engine, monolith thing. But at the same time, I'm like, that sounds awful. It sounds like it is kind of a nice thing that I'm not tied down to, using the audio editor that my video game engine provides and stuff like that. That stuff is all cool, and the fact that I can mix and match. But I think it's kind of just like an unavoidable pain. Just like, yeah, you're just gonna have to switch a lot. You're gonna have to do a lot of file format conversions. You're gonna have to, deal with random import errors and things like this. You're gonna have to hit file, export, and go through settings like 20 times in a day just to keep updating your music or your 3D model or whatever it is. The best experience I've had was with Unity and Blender, because you can just plop in a blend file into Unity and it will update appropriately. It will do all the good stuff. And I think there was an extension for Godot that did blend files, but back when I used it, I think it was in its infancy and kind of janky. So maybe it's better now. Maybe I should give it another try. Not too sure. Aside from that, generally on the coding side of things, I'm very used to, I've done a lot of coding development that's not game dev related, and I'm very used to libraries. So like libraries are kind of like, for those who don't know, they're like collections of code that you can use for almost always free. Stuff you can, things that people have already made. So for example, for like a video game, there can be common libraries for things like a player moving around, right? It's gonna be a billion libraries for that from many people. Just public code you can use for whatever engine. It's just very basic stuff. But when you go from non-game development to game development, you notice that the amount of libraries, or the amount of libraries that you actually want, decreases by a significant amount. Because when you're doing a lot of this general coding stuff, you'll find that like there are a lot of things that you want to do that people have already done. When you go to game dev, you find that things that you want to do are oddly specific. It's like, okay, I do want a character that can walk around and whatever in 3D, but I also want them to be able to wall run. And that might mean that all of these libraries that existed before that were, very, general purpose movement libraries are just not going to work out for my purposes. And okay, so you finally found the one that does wall running or something like that. But, the feel of this isn't very good. And I'm going to have to end up just recoding like 90% of it anyway. So I'm just going to start from scratch. It's not really a point, or, mix and match your mechanics and whatever. And the fact that so much of game dev is iterating on what already exists, right? So it's like, okay, we have this very standard idea. People have already coded this like millions of times before, but I want mine to be a little bit different. And so it might mean that you're just throwing, like the code is practically unusable. So at this point, honestly, I almost never look for libraries. I just stopped caring. I'm like, okay, chances are I'm gonna have to code these things from scratch. There are sometimes I think that like editor tools are pretty useful. So like in Unity, there'll be plugins and Unreal Engine as well, and in Godot there's like tool scripts and stuff like that I think are generally useful. Those are like more like DevOps things, like things to help you actually develop, like to speed up the development process, and they're not like things that the end user will ever experience, that the player will ever experience. They're just things to make your life easier as a developer. Those things I find it doesn't matter what kind of game you're making. Like they tend to be just useful regardless. So yeah. And when it comes to wanting to actually learn how to make certain things, so if you're making things from scratch, you're not using many libraries, you need to, there are a whole host of YouTube tutorials and online guides to how to do many things, and these are actually pretty useful when compared to libraries, because they might help you understand like general principles and not going to lock you into an exact way of implementing it, because there's no implementation. You have to implement it yourself just based on what is being said. More or less depends on the tutorial. Some tutorials will guide you like literally this is what you're doing exactly, and there can still be some benefit in that even if you're not doing that exactly, because as you're going through the steps, you're learning, okay, this is what this part of the code does, this is what this part of the code does, and maybe it makes it easier to adjust accordingly versus having a whole bunch of unexplained code dumped on you by some library, right? The issue I have with the general tutorial, my pet peeve, I guess, for the tutorial landscape and the guide landscape is there is so much repetitive content. I have mostly stopped watching YouTube videos on game dev. Very strange. Someone used to watch YouTube videos on game dev all the time, like 24/7. Why? Because I feel like I've watched everything at this point. I've seen everything there is to see. I don't know if that's a thing that you guys experience with your own respective fields, where it's like, I feel like I've exhausted everything that's been put out there. Every once in a while, there'll be something that's like interesting and stuff, but it's not nearly as frequent as it was before. Where I used to like watch every single GDC talk, for example, or whatever. But honestly, even those, I feel like I've heard these things before. The amount of like, oh man, the amount of like, I think this is kind of natural, right? When you're developing a game, you're trying to hone in any skill. You look up a lot about like, those videos of like, 5 things I wish I know before I started game dev. The most like classic YouTube video in the game dev industry. Okay, they're saying the same set of 20 things. Okay, so you watch 5 or 6 of those videos and you'll know them all. You know them all by heart.
Well, when in doubt, when in doubt with content creation, you make a list. That's what you always do.
Right. Yeah. The list videos are endless. But the irony of the list videos being endless is that the list is not endless. It's actually pretty finite. There's only so many things. So I remember watching a pretty interesting video. I think it was like 100 tips from game developers or something like that. I can't remember the channel. Like I can imagine the channel. I can't remember the channel name. And it was actually interesting as people who were who had jobs in the game dev field, and I think they went to maybe like a gaming convention, and they went and asked people in person, and maybe they got some online contributions as well, and so like just 100 tips, and there were a lot of actually like there were a lot of things that are like, okay, I've heard this, yep, yep, I understand, don't do the feature creep thing, under scope, okay, I understand these things, right, common things, but then there's eventually the occasional thing of like, wow, I haven't really heard this before, but it's kind of annoying that like, I guess it's the pet peeve. It required me to listen to 100 tips to get like a couple that I was like, wow, that's really good, So I don't know. I don't know if that's a game dev specific thing. I imagine it's not, and that it just exists everywhere, kind of.
No, it's. I mean, it's not even just an internet thing either. Like, if you, let's say, as a flute player, you want some like, I'm kind of struggling. I need some new technical exercises or something like that, and something that's actually going to like actually be useful to me. And you could buy like, 50 books, and is there really any difference between any of these people who all claim to have like, this is how you should, practice your technique on the flute? No, I mean, okay, you can, if you like sift through all 200 pages of each one of the 50, you might pick up a few things useful here or there, but mostly it's just too much stuff, right? And it's really not any different. Just I prefer to start on the E flat instead of a D flat. Like it's no, yeah. And so it's worse in print though because you have to buy these things. But yeah, same thing online. Oh, you want to like, every musician has some kind of like, here are some great tips about how to play, how to improve your intonation on piccolo, and like, is it actually great? I mean, no, right? So it's all the same thing. Sometimes said in silly different words. Occasionally, like there's one good source of piccolo. One guy who's the principal.
Oh, you cut out. I think you muted on accident.
Oh no, sorry. I don't know how that happened. Honestly, I have no idea how I muted myself. Yeah, I mean, there's like one person out there who has good stuff about piccolo. It's the Igor Gorkin, who's the piccolo player at the Berlin Philharmonic, but he has a very unconventional Instagram channel. He only does Instagram, and he does very unconventional things, and he is always talking about very unconventional things. Like, he doesn't play according to a textbook, which is good. I like that. But, everybody else, it's all just the same sort of stuff repackaged.
Yeah, I gotta look for the unconventional, artists in the field or something. I don't know. I gotta go deeper into the rabbit hole.
Well, if I could throw my 2 cents too, yeah. I have the same problem in filmmaking as well, and it's funny because I think back when I was just learning filmmaking, like in high school, the list videos were actually like unique because like do-it-yourself filmmaking was like on like I was like a whole new thing. Like that wasn't a thing before. And so that was happening. And then over time, like, it's just like you can't even sift which videos are like AI made anymore in terms of like the script. You know what I mean? Like someone typed into into ChatGPT, give me 5 ways to improve my filmmaking. And then they just spit out a script, and they just read it. Excuse me, and put pictures to it. And it's like, I mean, yeah, you click the video, immediately you click away, but it's like the time sink to just find information nowadays is nuts. And so I've just stopped looking into like just like base level stuff like that. And what's helped me a lot is finding specific people has been kind of the way to like, navigate that, like specific people who are experts who are putting out good niche content. But even that, like, for, like, color grading, that there's, like, 1 or 2, like, that are actually competent. So it sucks.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll look for, like, individual people, I guess, rather than... Because usually I don't really follow, like, many game developers. Like, I kind of do. Like you type their names in enough on YouTube and you'll get, like, the recommended. So, like, I kind of, like, already do in a way, unintentionally. But it's not like I guess I don't like typically. I'm a lot more interested in the content, I guess, than like the title or whatever, than the person who's saying the stuff. Usually, because you can get like a lot of information from like people who have like 2 subscribers practically. So yeah, that's interesting. Maybe I'll find like some like a channel that I find like reliably good or whatever, and then check it out. So yeah, and aside from that, seeing that in YouTube videos, you also find that like on the like places like Reddit, but like in a different sense. Like you'll find on Reddit a lot of samey questions, which I think is like, okay, I understand that a lot of people are maybe new to game dev or whatever, and so they just don't know, right? Like the basics, that's fine. My issue is that you can just look all these things up and you'll find another Reddit post that asks the same thing. So like the classic one that kind of bothers me is like, hey, my game, didn't sell very well. Like, here's my postmortem. Like, it's so sad. Like I got, 10 sales and 2 reviews, and one of them was from like my mother or something, and whatever. I was like, okay, that is tragic, but also you were not the first person to post the exact same story, and you're also not the first person to have the same exact like like archetypical game, of like, wow, let me go to the Steam page. Oh, there's no video. Oh, these images kind of suck. There's like a one sentence description. It's like, okay, maybe I understand why. Oh, I look up this game and it has no presence anywhere other than this Reddit post and the Steam page. I suppose that's also like, but at the same time, here's the pet peeve. I don't know how you avoid, we're just talking about the repetitive content, right? There's repetitive content telling you like good information too, right? Like a lot of it is good information. And so some of it is like, when you're trying to sell your game or whatever, like, here's what you should do. And then you find people who just manage to somehow actually get to the end, like a rare thing, right? Like, they actually manage to get to the end and not find this content, like the basic things to do before you actually like try to sell your game or whatever. It's very, very strange. And then you get like a billion posts or whatever. I don't know. It's hard for me. I don't want to judge because I don't know like the behind the scenes of what happened actually. Like how did they actually get there? Like how is this possible? In my brain, it's like this shouldn't like. I really don't know how this happened, but it happens so often that I'm like, part of me is like, there's no way. Part of me is like, it happens so often that like, I guess it's just easier to avoid this information that I once thought. I don't know, but it does seem like it is everywhere. Kikaro says, oh, this is a lot of chats. I don't know if you guys have been seeing them. I totally just forgot to look at the chat.
Only the latest chat is related.
Okay. Me making an indie platform with pixel art. I will learn nothing from this podcast. Yeah. Well, here's the thing, right? You can make an indie platformer with pixel art. They're kind of a dime a dozen, right? But like, I don't have an issue with that. If your goal is to sell it and to make a studio off of that and be self-sufficient money wise, I actually don't really mind that. Go for it. You might have if you have a kind of mid idea, I don't really care. Okay. The pet peeve is just like when it doesn't work and then your postmortem is about, why didn't it work? And then you make all like the classic mistakes, not specifically the genre or whatever, just like, just there's no video. It just boggles my mind. There's no video. I don't know, because at least like things like, okay, well, the images kind of suck. It's like, okay, at least these things are like more arguable, even if I think they obviously aren't great. It's like, okay, you can like, these are more subjective things. I understand, right? But like, it's just like objectively, like, there's no video. That part, it just bothers me the most because it's just it's not something that can be argued against. There's just no video. So anyways, so if you make your pixel art platformer, you post a postmortem, and then you have no video, then I will be upset. But otherwise, you're fine. Okay. Aside from repetitive content, Kai says, yeah, no video is a pretty big deal, right? Yeah. But also, to be fair, I understand that plenty of people put the games on Steam and do not expect any more than like 2 cents out of their thing, and they don't have videos. That's fine. I don't care. It is just when you're asking why didn't it work and you have no video. So, yeah. Aside from repetitive content, this might be kind of a hot take. I don't know. My pet peeves is the necessity of like visual and auditory art. Now, here's what I mean. My favorite part of this whole game development thing is like the game design is, well, I've talked about this before. Like I like really cool mechanics. I like technology, like new technologies, right, and stuff like that. And I think it all is super cool when it comes together, and with other forms of art into a crazy mixed media, right? But I don't like how, if I want to make a game and it be successful, well, okay, I understand why it's like this. Maybe it's not that I don't like it. Maybe this is the irrational pet peeve, is that I want to make a game, cool. I need to have all these different skills at my fingertips. I need to be able to, design, code, whatever. Then I need to like furnish this like 3 level, okay, and then I need to make like music for it or something, right? Now the alternative is you pay someone to do this. This is very expensive, believe it or not. Or you can potentially, join a team and that's doing it for free. I've talked about this before. I'm pretty sure I don't have a dedicated segment on this, but you probably heard me talk about this before. about like working in teams and all for free, and things oftentimes don't work out as intended. Whatever. Sometimes they can, sometimes they don't. So it does bother me when I get to the point of game dev where I'm like, okay, I have a really solid foundation. It's like, okay, well now make a level, and it's compound on the level design thing. Okay, you have your level, now furnish it. It's like, I don't really want to. Like, it would be better if this map was furnished, but I did 3D modeling for a decent amount of time. I still do it sometimes. It's very time consuming just to get something that's like okay, in my opinion. You know. So and music, I'm the most you'll get from me is an 8-bar simple loop. That's the most you'll get from me. I can't do much more than that. So yeah, that when you reach that dreaded position of like, dang, really that is the next thing. And I know it's just not gonna, I guess it's kind of like an expectation thing, right? It's like, it's not going to live up to what I'd like the game to be, because I'm not chiefly a visual or auditory artist, but I kind of have to do it anyways. And yes, there is programmer art, quote unquote programmer art, which is like I think Geometry Dash is a pretty good example. It's like a bunch of shapes, right? It's like programmer art. The idea is like, even a programmer can make this, right? not dissing Geometry Dash for its art. It works for what it is, and it's fine actually. But even stuff like that, like I have an issue with things, even basic things like, okay, I have some shapes, but what about the colors? Like I don't know what colors to make these things. I don't know. It sounds stupid, but like I just like okay, I can go to like colors.adobe.com or whatever it is, right? And like put in like some like complementary colors or whatever, and then I put in the game like, this looks kind of not great. And then maybe it's because I'm like, maybe wrongfully applying color theory or something. I don't know. I'm just kind of like taking the most basic thing I know about it, and then just being like, okay, well, I will try to the best of my ability to apply this 1% of knowledge, and when I'm lacking the 99% of other important knowledge, to make colors look nice or whatever. I don't know, but yeah. Okay. And that's kind of all I have for like developing. And then I also have things about playing games. But before I get onto that, I was wondering, do you guys have any pet peeves of your own about playing games? Anything that, when you play a game, you're like, dang, that sucks or something?
Boring tutorials.
Oh, that's a good one. I didn't think about that. Okay.
Yes. I really hate that. That are unskippable.
Unskippable tutorials, I think, are pretty bad, typically.
Yeah. I can't think of any other off the top of my head.
All right. I think I know a lot of people say that unskippable cutscenes are a pet peeve. I personally do not mind. I think that's a hot take, actually. I think that unskippable cutscenes are fine. I think that, like, if you want to show me some cinematic before we start the game, all right, like, I don't know, sure. I don't, like, I just don't care. Like it's not even like I don't care. I think it's probably good. Like I'm probably going to enjoy this. So I don't know. I don't have an issue with unskippable cutscenes as long as they're not too long. I remember one time I was playing Call of Duty, and I think the cutscene, it was like a new update happened, and the cutscene was just very long. And I was like, okay, it's not that. I'm not that invested in any of this. It's Call of Duty. I don't know. That was maybe a little bit too long, but I think it's just more of a bad cutscene, and not like a fault of just an unskippable cutscene by itself or whatever. Kai says, keyboard controls that require me to WASD even though the mouse is not in play. Really? I mean, okay. Wait, so are you saying, Kai, are you like are you an arrow key person? Are you what is it? IJKL, right? Person? Or what's the alternative here? Because personally, I prefer WASD, and I have noticed that you Metroidvania people don't do this. I don't understand. You don't use WASD for movement. I've played those Metroidvania month games, and I see that for some reason we just stopped using WASD. I don't really understand why. Because every other game uses WASD, as far as I can tell. So he says arrow keys for life. Okay. Arrows plus ZXC. I was raised on DOS and Japanese indie titles. Okay, maybe not every other game uses WASD, but for me, I am so used to WASD for literally everything else that it. So my like, if I had a choice, it'd be WASD, and then my right hand would be on NM, comma, and then potentially period if required. That's my my choice of Metroidvania key bindings, but. Whatever. What was I even talking about? How did we get here? Oh, cutscenes, unskippable cutscenes. I don't have an issue with that. My issue is unpausable cutscenes. The amount of times when mid cutscene and like something in real life occurs, right? Like I have to do something, right? And I'm like, okay, but if I skip this cutscene, I cannot watch it again. Unless I go to youtube.com and type in like, I don't know, Tomb Raider all cutscenes and then scrub through and find the cutscene I'm looking for and then watch it and then open the game and play it, right? Not really the experience that I want. And, to be fair, presumably, like leaving during cutscene is probably the worst time you want to leave, right? You want to leave the game right after the cutscene, right before it, whatever. You probably don't want to leave mid cutscene. It's like leaving like mid, point of high tension in a movie or something like that. I don't know, something similar to that. Sometimes real life happens, right? And you have to, you just have to leave. And I'm just sitting here like thinking like, dang. So how long is this cutscene actually gonna last before I can leave, or what? And even worse is there are some games with pausable cutscenes, but because there are just some of them, you never know, and so you wonder, okay, if I hit escape, am I gonna skip or am I gonna pause? Because these are really these are polar opposites right here. One of these is like, okay, thank God, I can leave now. The other one is like, oh my gosh, I ruined it. So that is and the fact that like escape is actually used for pause on certain cutscenes is like, maybe we should make it like something, just some other standard, right? So we don't conflate ourselves. Actually, the skip should be different because escape usually is pause elsewhere. So the skip should be something different, spacebar or whatever. I don't really care. That. Or I love it when games you have to hold the button to skip. So you have to hold escape or whatever to skip. You can't just like press it. I never have an issue with accidentally pressing, but presumably that's like one thing they're trying to solve. But that doesn't mean that I can test, right? And just tap and okay, all right, we didn't skip. So yeah. Kai says, I started accommodating WASD plus JK instead because enough people use it though. Okay, I see. Yeah. Right. So unpausable cutscenes, I think there's almost no excuse from a developer's perspective. There are like two types of cutscenes, right? It's literally a video, in which case, why can't I pause it? It's just a video, okay? You can tell when it's a video because the quality of the game just changes. It looks a lot better usually than it normally does. Because they don't, they almost never render out a video for every quality preset or whatever. They're just not going to do that. So it's gonna almost certainly look like the max quality thing, right? So if you're not playing on max quality, it'll look better. And sometimes even, I think Ubisoft does this. I think where they'll have a game and the max quality like preset, like you pull all the graphics settings to max, it won't even live up to the video like cutscenes. They have some crazy thing going on back there. I don't know. But yeah, so it's a video, you should be able to pause it. Now, if it's not a video, if it's like, usually how these things work is that it's just keyframed in kind of like you would in like a video editor, right? It's kind of unexcusable. It's a little bit more excusable, but it's not that hard usually. Sometimes it kind of is because, for example, let's say you have a character with a cape, for example. You might have it so that the cape itself is not being keyframed. It's actually like physically being simulated, but the character's like body and the rest of their body is being keyframed in, right? So everything is on rails, but the cape is physically active. And pausing physical things can sometimes be more tricky. Depends on the engine, so they make it so trivial that and how you did it as well. Like if you're using the engine's like physics proper and you're not like doing anything custom or whatever. So some situations I understand like pausing the cape might actually be hard. You might have everything else pausing and the cape's just still flapping around or whatever. But there are definitely a lot of engines, a lot of tooling where pausing the physics is not hard. And when you think about it, as long as the game has pausing in some sense, right? It means they're able to pause the cape. So they just make it so that same functionality just happens during the cutscene. So I don't know. There are way too many games that don't have pausable cutscenes. I think it's insane. So yeah. We talked about trailers before and games not having them, and I think that cinematic trailers are a pet peeve of mine. I think a long time ago, years ago, I think I used to not mind. Just for those who don't know, there are like two general broad categories of trailers. There are cinematic trailers and there are gameplay trailers. Sometimes there's like trailers that are a bit of both, whatever. Gameplay trailer is kind of what it sounds like. It's more representative of like playing the game. It's usually in like everything in the trailer is something that you could actually do and see yourself like visually. Like, you know, it's like a screen recording of someone playing the game or a sort of like it can be choreographed or whatever, but you know, at least theoretically possible for you to do these things. A cinematic trailer is like, I don't know. It's like if like I don't know it's like a 5-gum commercial. I know it sounds the same, but hear me out here, right? You ever watched a 5-gum commercial, right? It's like how it feels to chew 5-gum. This is not literally true, right? Obviously not. Okay, the things that happen in those commercials are insane. Okay, you chew 5-gum, nothing like that will ever happen to you ever. Okay, you'll never feel anything like that. It's just gum. But what I'm saying is that like for a cinematic trailer, it's like it's like how it feels to play this game is what they're saying, right? It's like this whole nonsense that goes on the screen for 2 minutes, right? And you play the game and it's like, what was that trailer about? What was that even about? It was about nothing. Okay, it was just like eye candy to look cool almost always, right? Yeah, I can tell you things about like thematically. Okay, we're like, I don't know, we're playing a game in like Cuba or something, and maybe it's during the Cold War, and it's okay. The cinematic trailer shows that off, cool, right? But conceptually, we get it. But couldn't you have done that in the gameplay trailer, or like at least spliced in cinematic things with gameplay things, so that like I'm not just watching a minute of pure like whenever I go to like a Steam page or whatever, and I see a cinematic trailer. Nowadays, I just skip it. I don't even watch it. I'm like, there's no point. But I almost certainly don't care. What bothers me most is when there just is no gameplay trailer to even watch. In which case, you've almost certainly got me to not buy your game because I've seen enough of these things where they just don't interest me anymore. So, yeah, cinematic trailers. That might be a hot take. I don't really know, but they bother me. Okay, yeah. Switching gears a little bit. To quit buttons. I wonder if Irving actually knows this one. Do you know why certain quit buttons might bother me? Might be pet peeves.
Say quit buttons?
Yeah, like in the menu it says quit or whatever.
I don't know. Why?
Because sometimes there's two things here. First off, sometimes you click, there's a quit button, and you can't tell if you're going to the main menu or you're leaving the game entirely. Now, I think this has been cleared up in like more recent years. I think like a decade ago, this would have been like a bigger issue. But, like nowadays, it's like you just say like quit to desktop or quit to main menu, and so it's kind of obvious like what's going on. Or like there'll be like a main menu button and then a quit button, so you know like okay, well, if you're quitting and it's not the main menu button, you're not going to the main menu. You're going to the desktop. Cool. Now, that's not a big deal anymore. My biggest issue is games. This is definitely okay. This is the pet peeve. This is maybe even irrational. I don't really know how to justify this opinion, but games have a quit button when you're playing the game, and you can't quit to the desktop immediately. You have to go to the main menu first, and then quit desktop from there. Too. Okay, yeah. So maybe I'm not that irrational.
No, that's really bothersome.
From a game developer's point of view, I know that it is one function you need to call, the quit function. That's it. Or maybe like a save function too. I don't know. You just need to call, if you're saving, you're already doing that to go to the main menu as well, right? So just call the save function and call that quit function and call it a day. Why am I loading into the main menu just to leave the game? Why am I loading somewhere? Okay,
what game is like this?
City Skylines?
City Skylines.
Yeah.
There's a mod that adds a quit to desktop.
City Skylines is like, it's funny because it both is so like raw that like of course it doesn't have a quit desktop button, but it is so embellished with mods that of course it has a mod to do that. So yeah. Sakai was commenting on the cinematic trailer things. There's this weird trend of animated trailers for indie lately, though at least those sometimes segue into gameplay footage. And he said, requit functions, come on, don't talk like Alt F4 doesn't exist. I never used that, actually. I don't know why. I don't use it like ever for any application. I just don't think about the fact that it exists. I guess that's a good point. I don't know. Well, when you Alt F4, what's actually happening under the hood? Are you like will the game save? If it's a game that needs to save before I quit, will it actually like save, or does it just like quit it immediately? You know. He says, but seriously, I think the bigger issue there is putting both 2 menu and 2 desktop on the pause menu. Both? Wait, that's good. I like the option. He said no. I immediately forgot my question, so I don't know what he said no to.
No to it calling the save functions and whatnot.
Oh wait, so no, it doesn't save, or it doesn't save. Okay, I was 100% joking. Oh, okay, there you go. But that is actually something that, like, even in games that don't save, I don't even think about it. I don't know. I guess, but that might be something I have to add to my tool belt for games that don't save. Although, if it doesn't do any sort of cleanup, I guess that could be bad. Maybe I shouldn't do that. But yeah, it's one function, maybe 2 functions. We gotta save, whatever. You know, I don't know why we're not adding these buttons to the menu. Okay. And getting to the last few. Going back to the start of a game, when you first open a game, games that start up and don't give you the option to change settings before you actually get into it. Now this is like not an issue in a lot of games. It's just, you know, most games will, when you open it up, goes to the main menu where there'll be a settings button. You can go tweak things as needed. But a lot of specifically single player, like story driven games will just there's like, we're throwing you into this into this game. I think it's kind of like a movie theater effect, right? Where it's like, you know, you're in your seat, you know, I guess, well, you don't, well, okay, in the video game world, you know, you open the game, but in the movie theater world, I guess the movie starts, you know, it's about to start, you know, you've watched your trailers, whatever, and you get like the, I guess not so great, annoying AMC lady talking to you or whatever, I forget her name.
Oh, gosh.
And then, but we can ignore that part. And you see, like, you know, the logos and these intros of, like, you know, these like production studios or whatever. You see the THX like sound thing or whatever. You're like, okay, you know, we're ready, you know. And it's all like kind of building you up to the start of the movie, and then you just kind of, you know, a lot of movies will like kind of have like, you know, thematic like logos too, right? Where like the logo animation changes based on like the movie or whatever, and then you go into the movie, and it's like, okay, that's nice one long transition thing, and, you know, sort of building up hype until you start the movie. Okay, cool, right? I get that. And so I get why you want to do it for video games too, where it's like, okay, you open the game and like, okay, you see this logo, and we're just moving we're just, you know, rolling right from logo, you know, stuff into the game. That is understandable. But what if, like, before we even showed the logo, we just gave you like at least some basic settings, like, okay, like, are subtitles on or off? Okay, because typically I want them off. So if I could turn that off, that'd be nice, right? Like, is there a colorblind mode? I like to turn that on, preferably, right? Can I change the volume, please? That is the worst one. That's the worst offender. Especially if you're playing a game and you're like on Discord or something like that, like a multiplayer game, it throws you into some tutorial, you know, does that thing or whatever, and you're talking to somebody, and the volume mismatch is just crazy, right? Because, you know, if you're playing a game, single player, or whatever, and you're not on the phone with anybody else, and it's loud, you just lower your Windows volume. And if you're lucky enough, your keyboard has a volume thing on it. If it doesn't, you're just screwed. I guess, you know, it sucks to suck. I don't know. You can try alt tabbing. Some games will actively reject this, so you can, I don't know, just hope. But obviously that will eject you from the whole start game experience that they're trying to give you or whatever. But if you're in a multiplayer game, especially, and you're thrown into a tutorial, I think Rocket League does this. You know, I got Rocket League a very long time ago. I think they didn't even have a tutorial when I got it. I don't remember, actually. Maybe they did. But I know at least now there's a tutorial, and I'm pretty sure it just throws you into it. You know, there are other games like this as well. So yeah, the issue is, you know, you're on the phone, and the volume of the game is just like blasting. So you turn on their volume using your keyboard, and now you can't hear the other person on the line, which is kind of annoying. So just give me some settings, at least, like, you know, a volume, a gamma setting or something. You know, just doesn't have to be the full thing. It's fine, just something. It's the core necessities. And once again, from a game developer perspective, I know this is easy. An audio slider is not like some like complicated thing to like figure out, right? It's not something that like it's like, oh, the game needs to be initialized first and like you need to have like all the save stuff set up. No. It is literally very simple. Okay, it is, unless you're using some like, I don't know, some like, unless you're coding in assembly, you're making Roller Coaster Tycoon. Okay, it probably doesn't. It's probably not a big deal to add a volume slider to the beginning of your game. So, yeah. And kind of a smaller pet peeve is invisible walls. This is understandably a more challenging thing. I get it. Like it. So the concept, if you don't know, like in many specifically open world video games that are 3D, this is concept of invisible walls, and I suppose they exist in 2D games too, to a lesser extent. Probably it's probably easier to solve these issues. But let's say you're playing a game and you're playing a game in like a city environment, right? And so like in real life, you can leave the city, but maybe in the game, they don't want you to be able to leave the city. So how do you prevent the person from leaving the city? Well, you can put all sorts of random obstructions. Maybe it's like an apocalypse setting, so you can put like, I don't know, like an insurmountable wall of like, you know, abandoned cars and trucks or whatever, and you know, various things like this. But if you don't have a nice thematic thing to do that, you know, if you're living in a pretty normal like modern day city, it's like, why couldn't you ever just leave, right? And so there are, you know, invisible walls where it's like you try to walk away and like you just can't anymore. You can't. There's no like, you just can't move anymore. You're just stuck there, right? That'll be one way to eject you out of a game for sure. And so even games that thematically have things, say like for example like Zombie Apocalypse or something like that, like, is it realistic that literally every exit to a city would be blocked? Depends on the situation, but in many, you know, that needs to be a very particular situation. And many of these video game situations, it's not realistic. And so, you know, they have to, you know, they try their hardest. Like, it's like, it was just kind of like ridiculous to put like a literally block of cars everywhere or whatever, like trees falling everywhere. So like, you know, there's some invisible walls in certain places and stuff like that. So it's a hard problem. I kind of get it, but it is also a pet peeve. There's some more chats. Kai says, I will say it gets slightly more complex with persistent settings, but is pretty easy once you realize the Godot audio buses exist. Yeah, exactly. This is an apocalypse game with no invisible walls, but what does that say? Brigands? Does anyone know what this is? This is just me.
Brigands kills you. I don't know.
This might be me being an uncultured moment or something. I gotta look this up.
Like, as in, like, outlaws kill you? Like, brigand, like, is that what you mean?
I don't, okay. Is that...
Robbers, yeah, okay.
I've never heard of this word in my entire life. Okay. If you go beyond the intended boundary. That's not a bad idea, actually, right? Something a little more organic, right? Where it's like, leave the area and things come to attack you, but they have to be good enough that like they will actually get you. So it could be endless stream of enemies, or like, I guess an zombie apocalypse, like zombies would be the I guess the logical conclusion, right? There are just zombies outside the city walls or whatever. But this would require that like the story doesn't ever take you out of the city, or the story now needs like some reason why you can suddenly get out of the city, like why there wouldn't be zombies this time or something like that. So yeah, it might be very tough depending on the scenario. Okay. And lastly, unreasonably large file sizes. This trend of like, hey, like, I guess I don't know, you know, we have 1 billion skins in our games, therefore your game will be 100 gigabytes, even though you will at most ever see like 3 megabytes worth of skin at one time. Very bothersome, okay? We totally could do a thing, right, where when we load into a map of Call of Duty Warzone, we just load in the specific skins that are needed. Now, I understand why this is like technologically more annoying to actually do than just saying like, okay, we just have all the skins on your computer, so you don't have to like download them every single time from our servers, whatever, right? I do get that. But 100 gigabytes is insane. And I feel like if you're going to put that kind of burden on the user, maybe you could take it upon yourself to relieve some of that burden by saying, hey, okay, maybe we have the most commonly used skins, maybe cheaper skins, whatever it is, on your computer. But these skins that you'll only ever see once in a millennia, like these things, you just download them. And yes, that is more annoying. Yes, your load times will be a little bit longer because download skins, but you also won't have 100 gigabytes of Warzone on your computer because that is insanity. And there are now many games that do similar things. So, and if like Microsoft Flight Simulator can do, live streaming the Earth, I think it's at least possible to live stream some skins. I don't think it's. Personally, like would I do this on my indie game? No. I mean, I won't have 100 gigabytes worth of skins, but if I did, I probably would not put the effort in alone. Once again, this pet peeve might be kind of irrational. I think this one's kind of rational, especially considering the offenders here are large studios who certainly have, I think have the resources to, to spend to do something like that, do something nice. I don't know, but anyways, that is last pet peeve I just thought of because I'm thinking about Call of Duty and Activision now, right? If you're a publisher that like everyone knows, like you suck, right? Like if you're like Activision, you're Electronic Arts, right? This is not a pet peeve like where I think like it doesn't like it bothers me because it's inefficient for them. It's just dumb, right? In my opinion. Stop putting your logo at the front of these games, okay? Stop. Okay? When I open Warzone, I don't want to see like the Activision logo. I don't want to be like, ooh, that's nasty. Yeah, that's not something that I want to consider, right? Now,
Dang.
It's kind of nice because like I'm like, okay, I know this is like an Activision game or whatever, right? I understand, I can keep track of like the garbage that they do, whatever, right? I can say, okay, I'm sure a lot of the garbage that goes on in this game is due to Activision and them being annoying, right? Okay, cool. But just like a weird like efficiency, like I don't know if it's like a lot of like arrogance, like pride or something like that. Like if like it's not like a hidden secret. Like everyone knows, right? Like no one goes and plays a game. It's like, oh my gosh, Activision made this. Like I gotta play this. Like no, that's not what's happening. They're going like, oh my gosh, a game. And unfortunately, Activision did publish this, but it might be good anyways. So like, at least if you're going to put your logo, like at least like don't like make it the first thing. Like out of respect for the developer or something, right? like make it smaller or something. I don't know. It's just like I don't know like why that's the policy, considering it's literally I think like bad. I don't know. I guess I'm not a marketing person. I don't understand entirely. Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe that like by association, people play these games that are good on their own, and Activision is associated with them, and so people are like, okay, well, maybe I don't like Activision consciously, but subconsciously I see an Activision game and like I'm more likely to buy it. I don't really know. Maybe I'm wrong here, but to me at least, it does seem like that is not good. That you should stop putting your logo.
Well, in their mind,
everywhere.
right? Like they think every game they make is going to be the bomb, right? And so they want to put their logo in front of it.
But that's different. Thinking your games are good, that's one thing. But if you know that people don't like your brand, that's different, right? Like you can still publish the games.
At that point, if it's that trashed, they should just rebrand.
No, it's not gonna work. people will remember. Like it's literally just be like, just don't put the logo. Like you don't have to. Like for example, when I listen to insert musical artist, I don't know what record label they're part of. I don't really care. You know why? Because almost certainly they don't make it known to me. I just don't know. And so I don't think about like who their like bosses or whatever. Right? I don't think about like what is going on behind the scenes because they just don't. They don't tell me. They don't put it on their. I own so many CDs, right? Like you would think like if it was like Activision, who like published music, they would put their logo like front and center somewhere, and I would just know, right? Like I literally don't know who what the record label is for many of these artists, right? I'm sure I can can open the CD, pull up the pamphlet, and like look inside, and you'll find it, right? Or maybe on the back of the CD or whatever, maybe in the bottom corner of it. I don't even know. Maybe you'll see it somewhere, right? But it's certainly not something I've noticed. I think maybe by design, because why would I like. Like for example, like UMG, I don't have good like thoughts about UMG in my head, right? I don't even know that much about UMG like to begin with. I just know that like they just bother me. Okay, they're random, even like from like a very like non-artistically minded thing, right? Okay, imagine this: you don't know a lick about music. You don't know a lick about music industry. You never watch this podcast. You just consume music, right? And that every once in a while you post a YouTube video on Discord. It says, "Oh, blocked by UMG on Discord," and you're like, "That's kind of annoying." I don't know who these guys are, right? It's just kind of annoying, right? It's just like a negative connotation that forms. Okay, it doesn't matter if it was like justified or not, like whether they should be doing that or not. It doesn't really matter, right? It's just, and I think UMG has the right mindset of they just don't slap their stuff everywhere. Okay, so, but I don't know, like the Activision equivalent, or I know I'm saying Activision, but Electronic Arts, pick your random, annoying publisher or whatever. It's like they'll do far more annoying things to the average person, right? And then they'll be like, "Oh yeah, by the way, this game was made by us." Okay, thank you for telling me this. That doesn't make me feel any better, but yeah, I don't know. That's all I got for pet peeves, though. So yeah.
Nice. Sweet. I'm actually curious because we have so many gaming people in our audience. I'm curious what their biggest pet peeves would be if they had to create lists. Perhaps that's for the Discord.
Yeah. If you're not on our Discord, feel free to join it. Go to mixedmediapodcast.com. You'll find a link to many things, but one of them being our Discord, and that's the best way to continue the conversation after the show. Yeah, it's a pretty nice place. A lot of gaming people, and so I would like to hear your pet peeves or your potentially hot takes on my pet peeves, stuff like that. So yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, shall we carry on with the last segment of the night?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, and here we go.
Mixed Media Music.
Hello, welcome to Mixed Media Music, portion of the Mixed Media podcast dedicated to all things music, with a particular emphasis usually on classical music and on media music. My name is Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and a media composer, and I'm the main host for Mixed Media Music, and I'm assisted by my two co-hosts. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yeah, so my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker, a media entrepreneur, and I own a company called Ariella based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
Sorry, I couldn't find my cursor to unmute myself. My name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and video game developer.
All right, so tonight on Mixed Media Music, we have Arguing with Reddit. And if you are not familiar with that, what we do on Arguing with Reddit, my co-hosts have found some hot takes or questions or something like that on the internet, probably from Reddit usually, and I haven't seen them, and I'll be responding to them live. And I found one for myself that I guess I'll be responding to as well, and I'm not sure how I'm going to answer it yet either, so we'll see how that goes.
Speaking of, let's start with yours, Ben. So
all right.
If you want to explain.
I have to remember what it was. Let's see. The title is Best Soviet Composer, right? Is that what I selected?
Yep.
Okay. It's a pretty simple, I think. The person says, Best Soviet Composers. Who are the top 3 Soviet composers, and what are the top 3 works by each? Preferably those who were born, raised, educated, and worked under the Soviet system. If something like a consensus arises, and if recordings exist on YouTube, yes they do, I'd like to make a playlist to listen to. Okay. Well, I did... Okay, so now I remember this. I did look through this, and a lot of people provided answers which technically do not meet all of your requirements. This person wants something very specific. They want someone who was born in the Soviet Union, which it's hard. It's hard to get because most of the composers that people know were born just before the Soviet Union. Educated and worked. Okay, that's all well and good. That's not terribly challenging. Now, we still have some issues with defining Soviet because the Soviet Union encompasses quite a lot of territory, right? Encompassed quite a lot of territory. I believe largest kind of conglomerate of all time. Land mass. Russia is by itself the largest country by land mass, including many ethnic people. And up until probably the mid 20th century Russia proper, just like the country Russia itself, as I believe the most diverse country in the world. The United States has since passed that, but yes. So, are we including all of the republics or just Russia? So that's a good question. But for these purposes, we're going to. Well, I guess I'll just answer this by not thinking of anyone outside of Russia proper. So because we want people who were born, that eliminates quite a lot. It eliminates Shostakovich, even though he was really only a boy, 10, 11 years old. Yeah, just turned 11 when the October Revolution happened. I guess he's technically eliminated too. So composers who were actually born, and I need to give you three of them that I like, and the top works by each of them. Well, honestly, I need to look up some dates of birth. I'm going to answer this properly, so this won't take too long. Let's see. I'm going to start with Siridov, and probably not a composer, but okay. No, unfortunately, he was born in 1915, so even he doesn't meet the cut. So I can't do that. What year was this? This is a quite challenging question. Rodion Shchedrin will be my next guess. What year was he born? He's still alive. He was born in 1932. All right, so I guess that's got to be answer number one because he is actually alive. He meets the criterion. He was born in the Soviet Union, worked in the Soviet Union, and is still alive. He's pretty old though. I think he's turning 92 this year, which actually, honestly, he's only I think he's the same age as John Williams. It's kind of crazy. Rodion Shchedrin, composer, people in the West are not that familiar with. I really love his stuff. I shouldn't say he primarily has worked in ballet, but a lot of his most notable stuff is in ballet. He wrote the ballet Konyok Gorobanyok, or the Little Humpback Horse, for his sort of like as a way of getting the attention of the woman that he eventually proposed to, whose name is escaping me right now. But Amaya Plisetskaya, who at the time was the top ballet dancer in the Soviet Union. So he basically writes a beautiful ballet for her. One of my favorite things actually written in the 20th century, The Little Humpback Horse, not very well known. I highly recommend, if you like ballets and you like Russian ballet, listen to The Little Humpback Horse. It's really a great blend. I think I've mentioned him at some point on this show, but really great blend of like kind of classical essence, like romantic era, classic Russian ballet, colorful style, but also with a lot of modern elements, but like not very avant-garde, but like kind of bringing like Tchaikovsky into the 20th century. All of his tone poems are great as well. His Carmen Suite and his ballet Anna Karenina are also worth listening to. So that's number one. Let's see. I guess someone who's born in the Soviet Union. Maybe Sofia Gubaidulina, although again she's still alive. And oh gosh, what's his first name? Mikhail Nozirev. Okay, so Nozirev is a really fascinating composer that really nobody knows about. I just stumbled across his music by accident some years ago, and ended up writing to his son, wrote an email to his son, who runs like the foundation, well, not really a foundation, just like the website dedicated to his father, and is in charge of publishing his works. And there's a flute piece that he wrote for Nocturne for flute and piano, which, as far as I know, is still unperformed. And he gave me the score to that, and someday I'll try to perform it. So Nosirev, he, so there's a little bit of background about him before I give you some pieces of his. Not that he wrote a ton, but kind of fascinating but tragic life story. He was a violin student at I believe the St. Petersburg Conservatory, maybe in Moscow. I don't remember. I guess he was born in St. Petersburg, so presumably in St. Petersburg. And during the Second World War, towards the end of the Second World War, he and I don't know so much of his family, but I know he certainly discovered Christianity. And you can read his diary. His son is published, or is not published, but like put his diary up on his website. It's quite fascinating. He discovers Christianity, and you can read his entries about how he saves up to buy a copy of the Bible, which is a forbidden book. And somebody notices that he has a Bible, whatever, and they report him, and he is initially sentenced to death for activities that are undermining the Soviet state in time of war. Sentence is reduced to being sent to Siberia, where he can't play violin, but he kind of forces himself to learn how to compose. And eventually, he is released from prison, but he can't have his music performed because he wasn't eligible to be a member of the Composers Union because he was a former criminal. And he got some of his friends together to make a impromptu recording of his first symphony, and he sent this recording to Shostakovich, and Shostakovich really loved it, and pleaded with the powers that be to allow him to be admitted to the Composers Union so he could have his music performed. And really interesting composer. His biggest work, not that it's very big because nobody's ever heard of him really outside of some parts of Russia, but he wrote this ballet called I think it's the Song of Triumphant Love, and it is it's based on, I believe, a Turgenev's story, but it's the most optimistic music. And it's very tonal, really beautiful. It's from the wrong century. How do you write such beautiful music when you have had such awful experiences in your life and still remain optimistic? So if you like classic Russian, like Tchaikovsky kind of stuff, listen to the Song of Triumphant Love, and really, his first symphony is I don't know. His first two symphonies are really good as well. The third and fourth symphonies, he starts kind of experimenting more with avant-garde sorts of things, but in a kind of subdued way, and in a way that's kind of wrestling with ideas. I think of mortality. He starts really playing with this after Shostakovich dies, and he's obviously looks up to Shostakovich as a mentor and friend, and so he's kind of exploring these ideas of death and immortality, sort of. I think that's what he's going for in his later symphonies, by combining more traditional stuff with a little bit more avant-garde stuff. So I would check out Nazirev as well. I know other people you probably mentioned someone like Galina Utvolskaya or Sofia Gubaidulina. Definitely worth checking out too. So those are my answers.
Cool. There was one chat. Let's see. Kai says, plot twist, secretly educated by Orthodox nuns. I forget what that refers to.
Presumably, you're referring to Nazirev.
Maybe.
I don't actually know that, but yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, despite the fact that Christianity was banned, it survived, right, underground. So,
Right. Oh, Kai says, I was just joking about ways to disqualify the 2 people Ben found. Oh, okay, gotcha.
I see.
Okay. Whoops. So this one is from me, and that's a video. That's what's happening there. Back this up. So, probably looked strange. The title is, and this is from r/Godzilla, and it says, Junkie XL giving his opinion why Godzilla's theme shouldn't show up in new Godzilla movies. And the quote is, John Williams' Superman theme would not necessarily, in its original form, work in Man of Steel. Hulkenborg, is that his name? Okay.
Yeah.
Says, because Man of Steel is a more melancholic, emotional storytelling instead of being so tongue-in-cheek. It's not that type of Superman. It's very similar with Godzilla. That music would not be one-to-one in modern Godzilla movie, but it's the idea that counts. And the reason I picked this one actually is because I listened to, or because I watched Mad Max recently, and that's partly a Junkie XL soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a film I watched prior to that was also Junkie XL. Not too long ago. Did he do Godzilla -1 or no? Or am I tripping?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Look that up. Let's see.
Apparently this is the man.
Yes. Oh yeah. Now he's one of those people, going back to what Nathan was saying, who used to, I don't know if he still does, post a lot about like how you should set up your, whatever, and all of those things. Godzilla -1.
Regardless, I feel like there was a. Oh, he didn't do a Nolan film, right? Or am I tripping?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Well, I remember there's a film that he did prior, like not too long ago, and I really didn't like the soundtrack very much. I thought it was very like overly bombastic and annoying. And in Mad Max, it was actually a very fantastic score. So I had a very contrasting experience. Very memorable and very appropriate.
See. Film scores, recent film scores which he's done. He did Godzilla, King Kong, New Empire, and Rebel Moon, Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah, I know that. Godzilla versus Kong.
I wouldn't have seen that. Maybe I'm tripping with my memory.
Zack Snyder's Justice League.
No.
More Sonic the Hedgehog things. Tomb Raider, Alita Battle Angel. Yep, I know a lot of these. Deadpool.
Okay,
Did you Mad
Deadpool.
Max Fury Road? The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Okay, I guess I thought he was in more things than he is. Maybe I'm confusing him with what's his face, the other European guy. They're all European. I forget.
Goranson.
Yeah, that guy. Yes.
Yeah. Goranson did. He did Tenet, right?
Yes, and I found Tenet's score to be loud. And like there were parts of that were super memorable and good, but it was mostly kind of just like, why is it so loud? But no. But Mad Max was actually pretty good, so maybe I'm making a bad comparison. So
yeah, he has some good stuff. It's not necessarily my cup of tea, like, this is what I want to sound like and whatever, but a lot of it is pretty good. So on this question of reusing themes in different films, I mean, if you take the main theme, right, the Star Wars theme from first Star Wars film, right, originally just Star Wars, or now we call it Episode 4, A New Hope. Well, I mean, The Empire Strikes Back is a much darker film than the first one, and that theme still works. So I don't know. I feel like if there's supposed to be some continuity there, and if the theme is like something that is kind of like a cultural identifier, right? And like, it's almost synonymous with the film and the franchise. I don't really see why it doesn't work, or even like Revenge of the Sith, right? Like that's a pretty dark film, but we still open up with the main title, right? And we still get, at least one good blast of the main theme at the beginning. Like I think there are ways to make these ideas work, even if a tone is different. Yeah, and like could you imagine? Even like look at the Harry Potter films, right? Like even after John Williams stopped composing for them, what was retained, right? Hedwig's theme. Like, everybody know. Well, I shouldn't. Maybe not everybody, but it's a pretty culturally. Yeah, it's a pretty culturally ubiquitous thing. Like it's just the sound of Harry Potter, even if the later scores diverge from that pretty widely, right? Like you still have to have that cultural identifier, and you work it into your scores somewhere, and especially even if it's just at the beginning too, because obviously like the tone of those Harry Potter films changes quite a bit from like the magical world of the first two. So I don't know. I think you can make it if the theme is like culturally significant, right, and it's almost synonymous with something. I don't necessarily know that Godzilla's theme is that way, but I don't think there's any like. I don't think the fact that like something is tonally different precludes using an earlier theme, especially if that theme is kind of central to like the cinematic identity of the franchise, I guess.
Yep. Cool. And a lot of people agree with you in the comments, in short. They're saying it's a really dumb take. So, and this person's mentioning -1 as using the Godzilla theme, which it does, and it's awesome, and it's completely different from everything that came before it. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with paying, homage to something and like making it your own, but still like paying homage to something that is like a cultural identifier.
Yep. All right, this one's from Nathan, if you want to explain.
Sure. So this is from r/music. It says, what songs take on a new meaning, perspective, or vibe when context is added? Now, I kind of wanted to ask this in the context of like maybe like a movie where you've seen the score first and then you watch the movie and then maybe the context changes like that. But I mean, you can answer in any regard if that doesn't work out.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of an example of the latter, but I'll just say initially, I mean, everything, right? Everything changes when when you have some context. I'm trying to think of like a film score that I knew first as a score and then watched the film. There are probably a lot of examples that I'm forgetting.
I'm maybe remembering this wrong, but was it The Power of the Dog that you watched or you listened to the score first, or am I wrong?
No, I watched that first.
Okay.
There are lots of things that I've like listened to the score for and never seen. Some things that things I know that I like, and I can recall pretty clearly knowing the score first. Like the Korngold films, not all of them. I don't know all of his scores, nor have I seen all of his films, but certainly like films that I've talked about in here, like The Seahawk, and The Adventures of Robin Hood. Those are scores I knew well before ever seeing those films, and they're not easy films to like to find. It's not easy to find in your daily life. It's not necessarily easy to find films from 1938, right? Now I eventually purchased them because YouTube allowed me to, Google Play allowed me to purchase them. I can watch them on YouTube because I paid for them. But I don't think it was necessarily like an option that was available, or even if it was, I definitely didn't know about that. Like when I was, starting out high school. So those are definitely two that like immediately come to my mind where I knew the score fairly well, and then many years later saw the films. Did that change anything? Well, I guess in a way. No, I've talked quite a bit about The Adventures of Robin Hood if we go back a couple of years. Still one of my favorite films. It's just a totally different like world of filmmaking and such. I know we also talked about like the way like whatever special technique they did to like get color on that film is very different than like modern coloration.
Absolutely
really
gorgeous.
really gorgeous in a way that like we can't get now with our nice digital cameras. I think it adds a certain richness to it. And I know I've also talked about how Korngold will often, in contrast to how we tend to compose today, often seems to score what is happening and not the like underlying like thing we're supposed to be taking away from it. And like the classic example of that from in my mind is towards the beginning of The Adventures of Robin Hood. Like we first meet our enemies, right? And they're having this lush feast, right? And we get this like beautiful festive music because it's a nice feast, right? And like we're supposed to see that they're, everyone else is living in squalor, but they have this like beautiful, they have a castle and they have more food they can possibly eat, right? And the music reflects that. It doesn't tell us these characters are bad. Like you can tell that already because the average person is out there starving and these guys are getting fat off of all the food that they've hoarded, right? And all the money they've taken from the average citizen. We don't need the music to tell us that. We're just given, it's a really pretty feast, right? And then, Robin Hood kind of, spoils their feast and runs away, and the soldiers of our antagonists are chasing after Robin Hood, and he shoots his arrows and kills a couple of them. And then we get a shot of the burial of these like dead soldiers, and right, and we have like their like the priest blessing their whatever, and like we get like this kind of really somber requiem music for them. And I mean, these are our enemies. We've just killed them, right? Like, but we still get like this kind of reverence, like it's death, right? Like it's not, death isn't good, and like death is going to sound somber, and like a funeral is going to sound somber. So we get that, right? I don't think that we would see that. Well, I don't think it would be scored that way today, but I also don't think that the film would be shot that way today, most likely. Most films probably wouldn't. Most directors probably, I don't think, would go for that. So like knowing those sorts of things are happening on screen does add something to the music. I don't know if it necessarily changes it, but it allows you to like understand in a different way, like how this music, which is great no matter what its context is, like how it's interacting with the film and how it's interacting with what the audience is supposed to take away from the film. You're not going to get that if you just listen to it. That would be my answer in the filmic realm.
Cool. All right, I think that's the last one. Yeah.
Actually,
okay.
sure. I'll just ask. ask you, Irving. Do you feel like that's something that, like, forgetting what the composer does? Do you feel like that would be like the way that most directors today would approach something like that?
Nope, not at all.
Yeah, it like really stood out to me when I watched the film. Like, that is just like, I'm so used to directors. If someone is evil, we know that they're we're being told that these people are evil. Like, we don't need to be told that there are antagonists. Like, we kind of see it, but like we're not living like here's foreboding evil theme, right? Yeah.
Well, if you get one whatchamacallit, if you get one person in the testing room of like 30 people, and one person raised their hand and says, "Excuse me, I was confused about that part," and like, who's bad? Then the studio rep is going to get all anxious. If this film fails and I didn't tell the executives about this problem, then it's on me. I'm not going to get the promotion. I mean, common sense goes out the window about how these things should be done. So,
well, yeah. So I don't know. That's what stood out to me about when I first watched that, and like, wow, that is just like not modern filmmaking.
Yeah, it's funny because like no like modern filmmaker really understands the phrase like show don't tell. Like, it's not like show don't tell is not about like the words coming out of characters' mouths. And I guess the most egregious form of telling is like when a character literally just tells you everything. I guess that is the worst kind of telling. But in a way, right, because I've talked about this before where it's like, I mean, the character could just tell you too, but contextually it could be done the right way. But but I know what they're talking about when they say this, but do the average film students these days know what they're talking about? Not really. They assume that if there's not words coming out of a character's mouth, then they're not telling. But like the music is telling, the color grade is telling, like everything is just bashing it over their head. It's you're doing the same thing. Like, let the audience have literacy. I don't know, and like use their brains. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, that's all I have for Arguing with Reddit. So thanks for joining us on Mixed Media Music, and thank you for joining us for those of you who have been with us at the whole show. Thanks for all the comments. And if you want to continue these conversations, join us on our Discord. Link to that down below, mixedmediapodcast.com. You can also find links to everywhere we're streaming. Make sure you give us a like or comment and let us know what you think, whether you liked it or not. And you can also find links to our local page down there where you can support us. Keep this content coming if you enjoy what we do. And special shout out to our supporters on Locals: Gay Kairos, Alex Egbert, 99 Crime, and Post.
Sweet. Yeah. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Actually, we'll see you this Friday first. This Friday, I will be doing a Fun Friday, and I will make sure to do it because I'm actually excited. Because I think what I'll do this time is doing music videos. I think I'll do music video analysis.
Okay. Okay, I'm curious.
Go ahead.
I like this idea, but you can continue. I have a alternate idea to propose, not for this time, but maybe for some other time.
Okay. Well, before you propose that, if you have any ideas for music videos, you have to hop on the Discord and let me know. Just put it in the general chat wherever, and I will be sure to review those for Friday. And then maybe actually right after this stream, I'll set up the event so that everyone knows that it's happening. But it's going to be fun. I'll be doing breakdowns of music videos I've never seen before and we can all enjoy that together. And I couldn't do that on YouTube, unfortunately. Or any platform for that matter, without getting taken down. So hopefully I can do this on Discord. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I was going to say, though, that an idea potentially, I posted in Discord in the Film and Media channel a link to funnily enough, a Northern Lion video, who's like I knew him as a video game YouTuber, like from the olden times, but he's doing this like movie trivia game where basically it's like a competition between you and some other person where you're given a movie, and you have to give another movie that's connected by either an actor, actress, or like director or writer, and whoever can't do it, can't like get to another movie first loses.
I'm interested for sure. I'll check that out. Maybe we'll do a little poll in the Discord and see which one we'll do for this week. But either way, it should be fun. And if you need a link to the Discord, there's a link in the description, or you can go to mixedmediapodcast.com, and there's a link to almost everything you need there too. So, yep. All right. Well, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching and listening.
Thanks for watching.
Look, tell a man no trouble. I don't want beef, man. I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then dead I'm on site. Wrong move, I bet they gon' ride. No need for the telephone hype, nah. No need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no losing. Better watch out for the snake and Judas is. Don't ask them who this is. I bet they know what I'm moving in. I bet I show it into a dim. How you hate and then lose again? How you hating my vibes? Why you wasting my time? Getting hype on my line. Tell a man I don't want feedback, I just want relax. Brand new whip, two-tone, I need that brand new hit. You know, like lean back, brand new bits. I live in we pack, man, you never gon' like us. Get them on sight now, let them on light. That way they know I'm more righteous. Look at my life, I'm living alright. I'm nice, you know I'm alright. Cause looking like Christ, no need for the hype or fight or telephone vipers. No need for the